This conference will now be recorded.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us for our inaugural 30-minute government contracting info series with my colleague over at the Small Business Administration, Virginia Smith. Hi, Virginia.
Good afternoon.
So this series is really just designed to be an open discussion and for us to be able to update you on different items that are at the forefront of government contracting. So for today, we're going to be talking about the state of competition in the defense industrial base, a report highlighting, in 30 minutes, we can only talk so much. Virginia, I'm going to turn it over to Virginia, where she's going to talk about some SBA policy changes regarding manufacturers and the supply chain. And then we're going to wrap it up with size standards, make size standards.
Yeah, and I want to just kind of talk a little bit about when Anna and I developed this series, it was sort of like government contracting is so much information. And so many times we have our webinars and we're flooding you with PowerPoints or CFR references and all of these other things. It just can be really overwhelming. And a lot of times we have really short snippets of information we want to get out to you, and we send an email, and we all know everybody's email box is way overcrowded and sometimes we miss it, and so this is just a thought process that we started. Please let us know in the middle of this meeting, afterwards, if it works for you, if there's topics that you're like, oh my gosh, I heard about this, and could you just do 10 minutes on it at some point. Just we want to make this live and interactive, and I know it's a little harder when it comes to these sort of contracting topics. So we're going to try and see how it goes.
That's right. And, one of the things as well is we might even bring in some specialists where we're able to on some really high level topics that we try to broach. So with that said, Virginia, I think I'm going to kick it off and start with my piece. So in the chat, you are going to find two links to two different Department of Defense reports that I'm going to mention today. So the first one is the Department of Defense report on the state of competition within the defense industrial base. So everybody's hearing about the DIB, the defense industrial base, why it's so important. And I think we understand why it's so important in terms of supply chain issues. But this particular report is based on President Biden's Executive Order 14036, promoting competition in the American economy. So the DoD, after the White House established this competition council, came up with, and under Section 5, came up with 5 core areas, 5 broad recommendations, if you will, to spur increased competition in the DIB. And I'm going to highlight those. You can read the full report, get the links, get the link out of the chat. But the first item is strengthening merger oversight. And I got to tell you, for years, Mercy, can you make sure everybody's muted, please? And everybody, if you don't mind, I know people are still jumping on. So the DoD faces basically a really tough issue with the defense industrial base as people have merged. There are some large companies out there. They've bought up their smaller competition, which has created basically a vacuum in terms of competition for the DoD. So now what they're going to do, they being the Department of Defense, they're going to heighten their reviews of mergers and acquisitions that are necessary and whether they are. And if it threatens the DoD interests, the DoD will support the Federal Trade Commission and the Department of Justice in antitrust investigations and recommendations involving the defense industrial base. I'm reading this off the report. The next item that they're going to be looking at of the 5, addressing intellectual property limitations. So everybody wants to protect their IP. If you're going into small business innovation research or looking at SBIR grants and things of that nature, or just, it could be a manufacturing. But certain practices surrounding intellectual property and data rights, they've been used to limit competition in the DoD. So DoD is based vendor lock, right, Virginia? You've probably heard of that, and some other desirable results.
Hmm.
Um, so they're going to implement some best practices in terms of identifying its long-term IP needs and how they're going to evaluate them, and probably come up with some new evaluation factors to make sure that they're competing awards competitively and to provide the government IP deliverables it needs. So, they buy something from someone, the government, the DoD buys an item that's protected by IP rights. And what if they need to rebuy? What if that company is no longer manufacturing that? It creates a lot of issues. So keep that in mind. And then increasing new entrants. Um, that's a big deal. And we're going to, when we get to Virginia's part, that's clearly going to dovetail into what she's going to be thinking about as well. But they want to increase the number of small businesses in the defense industrial base. And so what are they going to do to reduce those barriers? Everybody's hoping that it happens fast. And a couple of things they've implemented in the past are other transactional authorities. So how they purchase, it's not going to be a straight contract buy. It's going to be easier for DoD to purchase directly from a small business. It's going to lower, if you will, barriers. What do they mean by barriers? Contract terms and conditions are going to be changed and maybe alleviated. So it's not such an issue for businesses. And they're also going to use commercial solutions openings. So hopefully that provides the DoD with the flexibility it needs
All right, I'm
for
going to have to time you out for one
yeah.
second. I know that we have some pretty seasoned people on this call, but I know that we have some new people on the call. So you just came up with a term that I don't even know what it means. Contract booking. What did you just say that they're going
So
to
there's
come up
other
with?
transactional authority. It's a way
Yep.
that the DoD can purchase by lowering barriers. And the way that they would do that is, a lot of the FAR federal acquisition regulations
Mhm.
would not apply as they would to a standard contract.
Okay.
And the
Okay.
second way is commercial solutions
That
openings.
was the one what does that mean?
So buying, basically incorporating commercial best practices to reduce barriers and to
Okay.
attract new vendors.
So
Yeah,
again, imitating the private sector to help promote efficiency in a way. Yep.
exactly. And
Okay.
there are a lot of prime contractors really that sell off to the DoD off commercial contracts.
Hmm.
So hopefully this can be really mirrored a lot more in the small business sector. And then increasing opportunities for small businesses. And right, Virginia, this is the challenge, but they want to increase participation in defense procurement and how they're going to do that. I'm going to talk about that in the other report a little bit. I'm going to mention something, but an emphasis on increasing competition has always been a priority. Both reports, somebody just asked if I'm going to be providing reports. Check the chat. I've already put them in there. Both the reports I'm going to be mentioning. So please, check that and copy and paste it. So increasing competition for the industrial base. What do we manufacture? Our manufacturing base has been basically reduced significantly. So, also implementing sector-specific supply chain resiliency plans. I know, Virginia, you're going to highlight some new sectors that the SBA's, there's some interagency partnerships
Hmm.
between the SBA and
Yep.
DoD, so that'll be great. But basically for the DoD, they need to take some new steps, is what the report says. And there are 5 key priority sectors that this particular report, and the report again I'm referring to is the DoD, Department of Defense, State of Competition with the Defense Industrial Base. That's the one I'm highlighting right now. So those 5 sectors, we're talking castings and forgings, missiles and munitions, energy storage and batteries. There's a lot of work in SBIR for trying to figure out this whole energy storage issue, and strategic and critical materials, and of course microelectronics. I mean, think about it. So can I give an example, Virginia? My
Hmm.
daughter's first year college student. She had a laptop. She had to purchase this specific laptop on campus. Okay, she did. And guess what happened a couple months down the line?
It broke.
Yeah, it broke. And
Yeah.
it was, some sort of circuit issue. But, as everybody knows who's trying to order parts, excuse me.
Can't get them. So what did the college do? Let her use her own? Oh, Anna's gonna cough. Oh.
Yeah, Anna's having a coughing fit. She waited almost 3 months to get her part, and it's
Oh,
finally been repaired.
okay. So hopefully
Yeah.
she didn't have to handwrite everything when she did that.
Well, thankfully, some other engineering student was able to disable a part in there. So maybe they'll come up with the new help develop those micro electronics and those
Right.
chips that we so sorely need. So that's just a quick overview. I encourage you to read it. You should know about it. Uh, Looking at your business model right now and you're saying, okay, what direction do I go? Let this also be a guide in that area. Okay. How am I doing on
I
time?
think that's the biggest point we want to make with Anna going through this is a report that's going to matter. This is a
Yep.
report that's kind of showing you the tea leaves for those of you who are currently DoD, you currently work with DoD in some sort of part of the supply chain, or you want to. And it may be a little far out, but at the same time, the point is to say, here are some things to think about when you're doing your business plan, when you might be pivoting, if you're struggling
Yep.
with supplies, thinking about partnerships, etc.
Right.
The government doesn't do many things to show you and help you predict the future except reports.
Yeah, and these reports are truly critical. And I know, Virginia, hopefully I'm going to eat up some of your NAICS code time here, but
For it.
a second report that's really important, again, this link is in the chat, is it talks about securing, and this is going to dovetail in the SBA and the interagency involvement that you're going to discuss. So securing defense critical supply chains. And again, this is based on a separate President Biden Executive Order 14017. And what I wanted to highlight really is one of their internal goals and how the PTAC is going to be brought into it a little more closely with the DoD. So in terms of the DoD's internal goals, they're really going to start using PTACs increasingly more, even though we already do, but increasingly more as access to the defense marketplace. All right, and help to, we're here to help provide clarity to small businesses, guide them through all the processes, jump through the hoops, and also to work closely with agencies and prime contractors that are looking to bring in, small businesses to help fulfill their contracting goals, right? And those goals are set by who, Virginia? Small businesses.
By the SBA.
That's right. So this report, if you look at page 60, but I think if you're in the PDF, it's page like 64. It's directing the DoD to improve clarity to small business opportunities, and the way they're going to do that.
The links are for the report that Anna's talking about now, and the ones she referred to before are in the chat box.
Thank you. So to develop and update the DoD's Office of Small Business Programs website, but the idea is to really, truly make it as a one-stop shop for those that want to have access to small business programs, resources, and availability to toolkits that want to sell directly to the Department of Defense. And for those of you, who aren't too familiar with PTAC, we're a Procurement Technical Assistance Center. We're funded through the Department of Defense. So that's why we're considered an internal program. So the department is intending to create processes that would enable DoD small businesses and small business professionals, to leverage our PTACs in conducting targeted market outreach and research and assistance efforts to support specific acquisitions. Okay, so what does that mean? We're going to work closer and closer with DoD small business specialists to make sure that we are reaching. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah. Something happened?
Okay.
Right.
So to make sure that they are reaching we are reaching the small businesses when it comes time to send out a sources sought notice. How else are we going to increase that industrial base without increased outreach? So looking forward to seeing how the DoD plans on utilizing us more. And, with that and in that report, I'm going to turn it over to Virginia because Virginia, I think you're
Sure.
going to highlight what's on page 65, and that would be the interagency recommendations. So, and
Uh,
I repost those things.
You know, and what's interesting is we started with the DoD because the percent of contracting that they do with small businesses just outshines all the other agencies. But that doesn't mean that other agencies aren't stepping up to the plate. And that's actually what I wanted to talk about today was there's a supply chain focus. Last year we are on, I think, the 1 year anniversary of the Biden administration's focus on how do we increase our supply chain locally. Um, it really has three pillars: resiliency, diversity, and security. So thank you to the DoD that Anna has the two reports cited. We don't have links to the others, but each one of these agencies has put together action plans really focused on how they can work with their supply chain to meet all these goals. Again, make it resilient, make it diverse in the small business world, and make it secure. So we have DoD, transportation, energy, homeland security, commerce, and health and human services. So the idea is each of these agencies already put together an action plan, and part of that action plan is working together. Oh my goodness, federal agencies working together. So they put it in writing, which typically means it does have to happen. And so, what SBA's role is supporting these small businesses. It's great that you get a contract, but how are you going to fund that, right? How are you going to make your working capital needs meet what you need to get the contract done so then you can get to the point where you can get paid? So, we are actually working directly with DoD and our small business contracting office to figure out how we can get resources. There's 32.5 million small businesses in the United States, right? Obviously, a lot of them may not be government contracting, but most of them could be. I steal Anna's expression. What is it? Toilet paper to tanks.
Yes.
There was only one time I ever
Just
got in
cookies.
trouble.
Please say cookies.
There was only one time I ever got in trouble for saying, I don't think the government will buy that. And God bless the internet. Someone's back on the back of the room with the iPad Googling it saying, well, the University of so-and-so is. I'm like, okay. So I don't say that anymore. So we're working with them to figure out how we can, I hear Anna talk about the PTACs are going to come in and work with DoD to help you figure out more products and services and more closely knit and contracts and all those things. Well, we're going to come in and work with DoD to say, how does that contracting officer help that small business learn where to find money, right? They know that they want to award it to the small business, but they're just a little concerned that maybe they don't have the funding availability. They don't have that cash flow that will really help them R&D. So how can we educate these small business liaisons, or how can we educate these other agency officials from other places that have no clue about what SBA can do? So we've got a big focus on that too. There's also some concern in the world of supply chain of, sometimes there's non-traditional financing. You don't have time for bank. I don't have time for that. I got to get my contract and I got to get moving, and I'm go, 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 because I'm a small business and that's how I make my money. Well, what sort of non-traditional financing is out there that we can help provide to you? So that's part of this. And then a big thing, you are going to be hearing Anna and I talk about this constantly, is there is this real push for how can we utilize grant funds? How can we utilize SBIR and STTR to help you innovate, to help you take your product, if you already have a product, to the next level? And frankly, selfishly, how can we use what you're making?
Well, innovation is the biggest buzzword. It's true, right,
Yeah.
Virginia? I mean,
Yeah.
you can't just bump out your competitors because you're on the same footing. You've got to have that little extra oomph, right?
Yeah, I just saw an SBIR come across, and it was just sort of like, if you already, because that building collapse in Florida, right? There's an
Right.
SBIR that just came out that says, if you have technology that can help us figure out what's in a vacant space in a building, please apply, right? So there's going to be a lot more of those general but very specific things that that you may be able to participate in that's grant funds, right? And that's the key. So that's going to be a big, huge push too, because again, how can we innovate in the United States with the technology and the IP here to move forward?
Exactly.
So what else have we done? We have a new manufacturing office at SBA, solely focused on manufacturing. Any of you on the phone that are on the computer that are in the manufacturing base, we're standing that up. I can't tell you that these are the 5 things they're going to be doing because they're writing that right now. But it's pretty exciting just to have a focused office on manufacturing. We have really encouraged all of our lenders to partner with manufacturing, so our financials have gone up. Lots of lenders in the area, they love manufacturing because you produce something. You have a widget that they can understand, or you have a piece of equipment that they can understand. So the numbers have gone up there. Now, what Anna was talking about earlier for focus areas is SBA provides money for regional cluster initiatives, which means we think that in this particular geographic territory, there's a lot of businesses focused on one particular effort. Rochester used to have 2 regional clusters. One was optics, makes sense, and the other was food. So that was a while ago, but now we've come up with some new money. So we have 12 regional clusters: pharmaceutical and bioscience, ag tech, agricultural technology is another. That's something maybe Anna and I can kind of explore with some of our rural territories.
I was just
ag
mentioning
tech
that
is
at a meeting this morning, Virginia. Very interested to know more. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And
we all like food.
We all, yes, we all like food. We all may not like the same food, but we definitely all like food. Retail, unmanned aerial systems, supply chain and logistics, and food processing, right? So there's 6 really focused sectors where SBA through Congress has put money in to say, how do we help more small businesses in these particular areas? And of course, the expanded contracting opportunities, that's going to flow through all these agencies. So as Anna said, who sets the goals for these agencies? SBA does. But not only do we set the goals, we go behind the scenes and try to make sure that they happen. Right? Did you expand your opportunity? Did I won't pick on anybody. Did this prime contractor actually fulfill what they said they were going to do in their subcontracting plan? So we work through those things too. Anna, does that make sense? I think it really dovetails towards what you were talking about with the DoD, but Absolutely. All these other agencies, when we get to those reports, we can bring them out, but we don't have copies of the action plans right now at the top.
I don't have copies of their action plans. I specifically wanted to highlight DoD since,
Yep. Hey, we know why we love DoD. They're the biggest spender in the federal government.
That's right.
But when we get them, we can always, post them to the PTAC website or something like that.
We can always highlight them at our next 30-minute session, Virginia, for sure.
Yeah. Fair enough. So I'm going to talk about one more really small but super important thing.
Talk about that. Can I just say,
Sure.
How important that financing component is for all the businesses that we work with that are in the government contracting sector, small businesses in particular, those that are trying to break through into it as a first timer, or, maybe who knows, maybe they're changing over to a different industry, if you will. So really excited to see those options that are going to be open now, additional options, I should say.
Yeah, and one of them I can quickly say, Anna, is contracting. So if you have a federal contract in your hand, we can actually guarantee a loan based on that contract, which would then you would repay the loan when you're paid for the work you've done on the contract. So we have the ability
to go to those. What are those companies that
factoring? Yes, factoring is very high interest rates.
Yes.
So if you encounter, I'm going to put myself out there, if you encounter a situation where the lender is wishy-washy, or that's a very professional way to put that, where the lender is a little concerned about a challenge of financing your potential contract, give me a call and we'll talk about it. Because there may be something that we already have or that is under development that can work through. And there's also, I'm from the federal side, but I am aware there's a couple state run programs that if you have a state contract, they can work with one or two lenders who will specifically do the same thing on state contracts. So that's something we have as well. I think they're mostly construction contracts, but we can look into that compared to manufacturing. Okay.
Okay, back to NAICS codes, our final topic.
Our final topic.
Yes,
and it should only take 30 seconds. NAICS codes. You all know NAICS codes. You all know you need to know your NAICS codes and that contracts are based on NAICS codes. Guess what? They're changing. The 2020 census will result in new NAICS codes. In addition, SBA will be changing the size standards as related to those NAICS codes. It's coming. I promise we will blast it from the rooftops when it's official. But as it stands right now, we're still using the standards that because there isn't anything written in terms of the new NAICS codes will come out and then SBA will issue the size standards, but we have to go through quite a process to get that done. So it's going to take a little while. So just a heads up for the small business community, the size standards are not going to change quickly, but they will eventually get there.
That's right. And right, so, how important are NAICS codes and everything, all these changes that are coming through? Everybody thinks, it's just a NAICS code. No, it's not just a NAICS code. We're going to be out there, we as PTACs, for instance, are going to be out there trying to improve the industrial base by working with small business specialists. So we need to make sure your NAICS codes are correct. So when we do specific targeted outreach, you come up in that search. You come up in the small business dynamic. Your SAM registration is up to date. All that aside, you've got to make sure that you really take a close look and you're fitting where you're supposed to be. That's definitely important. Then, of course, the size standards. What are they doing with the size standards again, Virginia? Are they opening them up to, I know they've expanded them, so from 3 to 5 years.
Yeah, they've expanded them because the goal is to try to encourage more participation.
Yeah, which is a great opportunity.
The only time I've ever seen size standards be a concern is an engineering firm that just had really large contracts. But typically, for the most part, we can go in. We've got 2 minutes, Anna. I just want to quick open it up to anybody that might have questions or chats or anything.
Yep. So please open your mic.
Sure.
Go ahead, Tom.
Quick question. So, Tom Sharon, I'm with Optimax Systems, and just a question on the NAICS size standard. So, our NAICS code is looks like it's being consolidated with 2 others. So, there's 3 NAICS codes that all start with 3333. We're 14. There's 16 and 18, and it looks like they're all being consolidated into 333310. Our NAICS, our size standard is currently 500. The other 2 are 1,000. We're not too far away from 500. And so just from a CAS standpoint, it'd be good to have a understanding of, do you have any thoughts or guidance? Would they ever take NAICS codes that are 1,000 and move them down to 500? Or is it more than likely that our size standard would be adjusted to mesh with the other 2 that we're being consolidated with?
So from the fact that we're recording, I can say to you, I really don't know the answer to that.
Sure.
But for the most part, when they've merged them, they've typically gone with a higher number of employees. But that would be reading the tea leaves as well.
Absolutely, understood. And we'll hear more in October. Is that a fair time frame?
That is fair because that would be the beginning of the federal fiscal year.
Okay.
And Tom, sometimes if you're following the Federal Register, it will be posted.
That is where we will
and what they're thinking. So if you don't already get the Federal Register notifications, I would Google it, get those notifications. They'll let you know when, from start to finish, what the recommendations are. You have the opportunity to comment, I believe, or is that gone already, Virginia? Is that still
No.
open?
You can still, it's
Okay.
still open, and you can comment positively or you can comment negatively.
Yes.
It's really
So
open.
you do have the ability to shape, these changes. So get
Sure.
involved and for sure take advantage of that.
Thank you.
All right,
Any
Anna,
other
it's
questions?
12:30. Do we want to be respectful of
12:30.
everybody's time? All right, well, we hope that you've enjoyed it. Send us an email and let us know if something was amiss or you have more questions or topics that we can help you out with. We would really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Virginia,
Yes.
for jumping on
Yep,
board.
everybody enjoy
I'm
your
excited to
lunch.
launch this.
Thank you.
It's been a long time coming. So thank
All
you
right.
all and be well. Bye now.
Thanks.
Thank you.